Hi, I'm Steve Murphy, and welcome to the Insider Exclusive. Today, we are featuring some breaking headline civil rights news. Stay tuned.
I was doing criminal defense work, and I noticed that a lot of times my clients had things made up about them by the police, but there was nothing I could do about it. And the best thing that would happen in a criminal case is the client's case would be dismissed, but the police could just do something right on the courthouse steps and start the process all over again, and they had no downside. Nothing would happen to them.
I am very pleased now to present Gary Castleman. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Steve.
You are one of America's and Los Angeles' foremost civil rights attorney. As we were just talking before the show, you're one of 3 civil rights attorneys that are recognized in the city of Los Angeles, right?
Well, I think they're more than that recognized in the city, but it's nice.
No, and
doing
you take on tough causes, and oftentimes you win them. And one of them is a case that you're about ready to file. Your client's name is Nick Sorensen, correct?
Yes.
And would you tell us a little bit about this case? Because we're going to go to the video that we have on this, which is actually the store video from the place where the assault happened. Tell us a little bit about that, real quick.
My client went to Saugus on a hot day in August to put gas in his car and to get something to drink in the mini mall connected to the gas station. Mm-hmm. And on his way in, a juvenile asked him to buy cigarettes. He told him no, rather emphatic way. Mm-hmm. And then because he was a little bit profane in refusing him, the kid said, "What did you say?" And so he told him again, and he turned into the store to do his business. And you see on the store video, the kid in the white T-shirt hits Nick in the head. Nick's in the black T-shirt, and they go down to the ground.
Now, this videotape that we just watched, is actually the security camera in the store, right?
Correct. And
what prompted this kid to just beat the heck out of your client?
Well, I think he had a loose screw somewhere, apparently, because my guy Nick told him he wasn't going to buy him cigarettes, and that should have been the end of it.
Now, Nick, your client, called the police, didn't he?
Yes, after this guy hit him and they got into a tussle, the guy left. Nick stayed, called the sheriff's department to report the crime, mm-hmm. and waited for them to arrive.
And what happened next?
The sheriff's deputies, incidentally, somebody at the scene took the license plate of the guy who was the aggressor.
Right.
In any event, the sheriffs come. They watched the same video that we're looking at here,
yeah.
And they came to the amazing conclusion that Nick had assaulted the other fella and pulled the knife on him.
Yeah.
Clearly, it didn't happen.
Right. So they arrested him.
They arrested Nick.
Okay.
For a felony assault.
And he was in jail how long?
2 or 3 days, and he had to pay $3,000, which was 10% of the bail, so it was a $30,000 bail. They didn't just arrest him, they turned it into a felony, perhaps to make their statistics look better.
The amazing thing is the district attorney dropped the whole case, didn't he?
District attorney refused to file charges after watching the same videotape that the sheriffs used, quote unquote, to arrest Nick.
So your lawsuit is against the sheriff's department?
Yes.
And what is it going to be for exactly?
False arrest.
False arrest.
Imprisonment, violation of civil rights.
And have you been in touch with the sheriff's department yet?
I've made contact and seen some of the paperwork.
And the district attorney has told you off the record. What has he told you about this case?
Well, my understanding from the paperwork is that the video, and it's written down, doesn't show what the sheriffs claim it did, and there's no basis to proceed with the case.
So why do you think the sheriff's department arrested your client?
Apparently, there's somebody that the kid knows in the sheriff's department because he gave a name of somebody in the sheriff's department, and he claimed that he struck Nick because Nick pulled the knife on him. But the video doesn't support that.
But the sheriff, he would have had to gotten a hold of the sheriff department immediately after this altercation took place in order to tip them off to arrest this guy, right?
What happened is that they contacted him because the license plate was given to Nick. Nick gave it to the deputies who showed up at the gas station. They contacted someone else who obviously ran the plate and then spoke to the guy.
All within that same afternoon?
Time frame, yes.
Oh, really? And then they arrested your client?
Right. And there's an interesting aftermath to all this.
And what is that?
After this fella had struck Nick and made up a false story, he apparently went to another location, asked for change at another gas station or mini mart, and reached in the till and grabbed some money and left and got himself arrested for robbery.
So this guy's just a human walking crime machine.
Well, he certainly was that day.
Yeah, and where is he right now?
Don't know. I'd have to look that up. But if he hasn't bailed out, he's probably still sitting in jail.
Your firm, and would you give out your phone number, please?
310-390-4406.
Predominantly handles civil rights cases, don't they?
Yes.
I always ask every attorney that's on a show, what made you decide on civil rights?
I was doing criminal defense work, and I noticed that a lot of times my clients had things made up about them by the police, but there was nothing I could do about it. And the best thing that would happen in a criminal case is the client's case would be dismissed, but the police could just do something right on the courthouse steps and start the process all over again, and they had no downside. Nothing would happen to them.
You've obviously won some pretty big cases against the police, right?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about a couple of them?
Well, I have the first case in federal court in Los Angeles to hit for over $1 million. I had...
and this was against who?
The Inglewood Police Department.
And what was the facts in that case?
A fellow had been evicted from his apartment for non-payment of rent with his girlfriend and their 2 small boys. And she had invited him to stay with her parents, and he was too proud, so he ended up sleeping in his car in a place called Dennis the Menace Park in Inglewood.
Okay.
And at 5 in the morning or something, 2 deputies came along, supposedly because of curfew, woke him up, claimed he tried to run them over, and they fired their guns at him and killed him.
Are you serious?
All the shots were through the side and the rear of the car.
And the car never moved?
They claimed that it had moved. Apparently he was trying to get away from them, but there was no reason for them to shoot, because if the car's not going to run you over and you can get out of the way, you do.
Yeah.
And if a car is going backwards, why would all the shots be from the side and the rear if you can get out of the way?
Yes.
So anyway, he was killed. They made an offer to settle.
How much did they make an offer for?
$150,000.
Okay.
And we went to trial, and the jury awarded over $2.7 million.
And it was settled for $1 million?
$2 million.
$2 million.
And there's even a funny story to
and
go
and
with
is that final?
Oh yes, that was in 1991.
Okay.
And the boys are set pretty much for life because I put together a structured settlement at 11% interest, which anybody would be happy to get these days.
Yeah.
And they get money every month and then a lump at various stages to help them with college and
Right.
buy a house, and all the way out to age 35.
Good. And you were saying there was a funny aspect to this.
After the verdict, I spoke to one of the jurors, and I asked him what happened, and completely proper when the case is all over to
Sure.
talk to the jurors. And he said, well, the jury wanted to give you what you had asked for. And I said, well, I didn't ask for a specific number. I just put figures on the board and told them it was up to them. What was their impression of how much I was asking for each plaintiff? Because there were 2 boys and then the mother of the man who died, not
Yes.
the mother of the boys, but the mother of the man. And he says, well, they were going to give each of your clients $3 million. I said, $9 million? And he said, yes, but I held them back. And at that point, I wanted to leap through the telephone and grab this guy. But
Yeah.
in any event, it was a very nice result. And one of the high points maybe of my career is after the verdict came in, I went out in the hallway, and the two little guys who were only 3 and 4 years old ran up and gave me a hug around my neck. I had to obviously get down on one knee, but they gave me a big hug and a squeeze, and
Good for you.
I felt great.
Boy, if that's not an incentive, I don't know what is, huh? What about some of your other cases that you've handled?
Well, I had a case where Inglewood again found a guy sleeping under a bush in Inglewood, and apparently he was a schizophrenic who had left his home in East LA with his parents, taken the bus literally to the end of the line, which was Inglewood, and the bus driver said, "Okay, you got to get out." So he didn't know how to get back, so he went to sleep, and he was about a 250, 300-pound white guy. When he woke up, he was being beaten about the head and his body by 6 Inglewood police officers, who later claimed that they thought he was a black Grand Theft Auto suspect.
Wait a minute, wait. But he was a white guy.
Yeah.
So wait a minute. You're saying the police mistook him for a black person?
I don't think so. I just think that that was the lame excuse that they came up with. I don't see how they could have made a mistake.
What happened to the guy?
Well, we settled the case because, as it turned out, when I called up to talk to the person who was in charge of risk management for Inglewood, he said, "Are you the same Gary Castleman that tried the Coven case?" And I said, "At your service."
Yes.
And he said, "Well, we want to settle."
Right.
And so I said, "Okay, settlement is good," and we settled the case.
How much you settle for?
That was $150,000.
Okay.
And so that was a little easier after going through the first exercise.
Any other police departments you've sued?
Oh, sure. Santa Monica.
What happened in Santa Monica?
A fellow had picked up a hooker on Lincoln Boulevard. He thought was a woman, but it wasn't. And then he went into an alley to do his business, and it was behind the Salvation Army off of Olympic and 11th. And these two figures came running up. They weren't in uniform. They were police officers, and they claimed that the car tried to run them over, which is a story I hear over and over.
Yeah.
And so they shot this guy and killed him, and the shot came from behind. And
so they shot him in the back?
Yes, through the side of the car, through the back of the seat into his back. And then they took the...
he was probably trying to back up.
Well, he's going forward.
That's a problem.
No. But in any event, he lost control, hit a tree on the median outside the alley where he was trying to leave, and he was dead. And he had a family, and he was estranged from his wife. But in any event, we settled that one.
How much you settle it for?
$1.3 million. There's an interesting story on that, too, because the attorney apparently had told his police officer client not to be very clear about certain facts, so it was hard for me to reconstruct the incident because obviously I didn't.
So the police officer on the stand would say, "I don't recall."
In the deposition.
Okay.
Then when I took the expert's deposition, he had this very elaborate graph from one moment to the next, and I said, "Where did you get your information?"
From the police officer.
He said, "From the police officer." So I was really annoyed because obviously I'd been played.
Yeah.
So there was a day when I went into court. I spent 2 months with my law clerk, and we put together a motion that was about 200 pages long. The law part was about 12 pages.
Yeah.
The rest was exhibits. And we showed the police officer saying, "I don't know." Then we had the expert showing that he got the information on that point from the police officer.
You impeached his testimony, basically.
Well, yes, but I went into court and asked for a fine of $50,000 against the attorney, who obviously, in my opinion, had put the police officer up to this.
Right.
And so the judge in open court asked me a question before she called my case for a hearing. And it was Judge Failser, incidentally, who I mentioned earlier off camera.
Yeah.
In any event, she said, "Mr. Castleman, can I ask you a question?" And there was a room full of lawyers. So I said, "Certainly, Your Honor. What do you want to know?" And she said, "You settled this case for $1.3 million, and now you're back here with a motion for $50,000. What gives?" I said, "Very simple. The $1.3 million was for the misconduct of the police officers in their department, and the $50,000 is for the misconduct of the attorney."
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh, now I understand." And she said, "Your motion is well taken." And she shook her finger at the attorney who was the recipient of my motion. but I'm going to deny it in the exercise of my discretion. But if you should ever have a problem with Mr. So-and-so, you'll just be able to get a transcript, and I think you'll have all you need. And I wasn't pleased, but at least my point was made, but
Right.
it was an expensive way to make it.
So we've got the city of Inglewood, we've got Santa Monica,
San Bernardino, County of San Bernardino.
What happened in San Bernardino?
A man with Tourette syndrome had a hammer, and he was moving towards, he had kind of lost it, and he was beating up the inside of his own house, and his wife and kids went next door, and the neighbor called the police, and he was kind of rampaging because of his Tourette's, which is a inherited disorder.
And she had told the police that he has Tourette's.
Right.
Okay.
Anyway, the other police officers did the right thing, and they stayed back, but one decided to kind of cowboy his way through it, and he got close. He was on the front lawn.
Yeah.
Anyway, it appears to us from all the evidence that he tripped and his gun went off and shot the guy through the heart. And then he made up a story about how the guy had a hammer and he was coming down on his head and he had to shoot. Well, the ballistic evidence showed that he was too far away. We had tests done to show how far that police officer's gun would throw the gunshot residue,
Yeah.
and it wasn't. If it was as
impossible.
he said, the evidence would have been
Right.
different.
How much did you win in that case?
The settlement was $3.5 million. My co-counsel got about $3 million for the wife and children. I represented the elderly parents, and they got $500,000. But it was about 7 years of work. So,
Any other cities?
sure, Hermosa Beach, Redondo Beach, Long Beach.
Yeah. What happens to these officers when they lose, when the police force lose a case?
Nothing.
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 Nothing goes in their record?
Well, there might be a complaint against them, but
I mean, the city's just paid out $3 million, $1 million, whatever.
you think that would make a difference.
Yeah.
If a corporation just took a hit like that, they'd probably look for the person or the reason, but the cities, using the taxpayer money,
Yeah.
don't seem to care.
Now, because you've been involved with all these cases, when you're stopped by a police officer, you must have extra sirens going off in your head about, what they can or cannot do or what they might do.
Well, first of all, the advice that I give myself and I give to everybody else is just keep your mouth shut and your eyes and your ears open. I don't run my mouth and challenge them out in the field.
Yeah.
Let them do their job, and if they do something improper, it's not because I taunted them or caused them to do it. But I also know what they are and aren't supposed to do, and in '88 I got arrested myself. And
For what?
well, I was picking the policeman said that it was interfering with him in the performance of his duties. As it turned out, he had a long history of misconduct, and by the time it was over, the case settled for $15,000 for 2 hours of my inconvenience.
You're settling cases for millions of dollars. You only get $15,000 for yourself.
Well, I had somebody else represent me, and he said, "You're a lawyer. The jury might not like what happened," and yada yada. So I said, "All right." An attorney I used to work for a long time ago said, "You can be, something else for your clients, but
Yeah.
you can't for yourself." In
Yeah.
other words, you have to kind of be more circumspect.
Right. I said this kind of facetiously in the beginning about, you're one of the top attorneys in Los Angeles and in the country, civil rights lawyer.
Yeah,
No.
I don't know about that.
No. Now I really mean it. And thank God there's people like you. And again, let's be real clear about this. Law enforcement does a great job. There are some exceptions. And thank God there's people like you out there, that can help the person who's, beat up or, jumped on unnecessarily. And, thanks for being on the show. Can you give out your website again?
Lawyers.com/Castleman, CASSELMAN.
And your phone number, please.
310-390-4406.
Thank you very much for being on the show, Gary.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us and watching this show. You can get more information at www.insiderexclusive.com. Thank you again. This is Steve.